Bulking recently got a bad rap from many influencers and content producers that said that it is basically useless and that is thanks to a few studies that are basically proving that you should not be bulking and that it's dead and it's useless. But there is a problem. These studies have been misinterpreted or some stuff in realization are plain bad, and bulking is still awesome. It's just misconducted or badly done, and we're going to check that out today. In this video, I want to come back onto bulking. What is bulking, how to bulk, why to bulk, and who should bulk. Let's go. Bulking is supposed to be something that kills 3 birds in one stone: gain strength, gain weight, and gain muscle. That approach is done by eating more than you need, eating in a caloric surplus. Basically, you are going to eat more than your body is burning to create a surplus, and with this surplus, you're going to create new tissue. Most of this tissue, hopefully, will be muscle, and thanks to this, you will be able to develop your body, get from a scrawny build to an athletic build, or an athletic build to a very strong build, or even like a strong build to like something that is definitely jacked and very impressive. That is, in a nutshell, what bulking is supposed to be. During the silver era, it was about doing hard training, heavy training, getting milk, orange juice, high quality and high quantities of all nutritious food. In the golden era, which was basically the same. In the 90s, something different happened, and they were basically picking out or pushing a lot the size game and copious amount of food with that to push through plateaus and size limitation. Many would just end up gaining almost just fat, especially naturals, but some would do that quite decently, but without a gauge or a way to measure up how much and how long you need to push it. Recent discussion in fitness communities have questioned this effectiveness of traditional bulking. Basically, you consume a large amount of caloric surplus and your justification is to gain muscle mass. Problem is that most emerging studies from the last 20 years suggest that this excessive caloric intake will just lead to unnecessary fat gains without any significant enhancing muscle growth. For example, there is a study highlighted in sports science medicine that indicates that high caloric bulking is not essential for muscle development. Instead, a moderate caloric surplus can promote muscle gain while minimizing fat accumulation. This approach is basically the one that is categorized as the most sustainable and also healthiest to approach, because it is simply something that will be much better for most people, and especially the average Joe that do not necessarily want to swing in between being very fat or extremely lean. Something interesting though is that in this study there is something highlighted that the biceps notably benefited the most in terms of growth and strength from this high caloric surplus than other muscle measurement, and that is something we'll come back later. There is another guy who is called Lane Norton, which is a fitness expert, who discussed this on his social media, and he emphasizes that the rapid mass gain through this huge caloric surplus basically suboptimal and lead to, again, unnecessary fat gains. He also, just like many others before, advocate for a better moderate approach, and that is not something new. Actually, already into the 50s we had Steve Reese telling us the same, and we also had in the 60s Vince Gironda telling us the same, and more recently we have people like Michael Degandil, Rudy Koya for the French people that you may recognize, and even many coaches into the international or American fitness side like John Meadow or other guys. So definitely something that is now better understood and better thought than prior, where we were just thinking that, you eat and it's just size and we are all happy with that. Similarly, sports scientist Eric Helms explains that large caloric surplus may not provide additional benefit for muscle growth, and you can just result in more fat gains. Again, and he suggests that a moderate caloric surplus is sufficient for muscle development. So in short, you go 10 to 20% above maintenance to have every good aspect of the bulk, gaining strength, weight, gaining size, gaining muscle, and with the least amount of cons, which is basically fat gains. With that tiny surplus, you will keep fat gain at bay, and most of your problem will not be problems anymore. And it's just for you to go and to measure and to follow up on your weight and other things. Measurement to make sure that you're gaining most of it as muscle and not fat. Period. Simple. This video would stop here, but this is where things get interesting with the concept of main gaining that has been pushed since something like 2-3 years already. So, quick note on main gain, which is basically recomposition, but this is a new term, I believe, for marketing purposes and new reason, I guess, just like myoreps and cluster sets and stuff like that, but who am I to judge? Recent researchers support the concept that involve building muscle while maintaining current body fat level or even lowering them as an effective alternative to traditional bulking. There is a study, again led by Dr. Eric Helms, that examined trained lifters divided into three groups. You have one with maintaining their caloric intake, one with in surplus of 5% kilocaloric and those increasing it by 15%. And the finding results suggest that a slight caloric surplus of about 5% was the best to promote muscle growth without significant fat gains, which aligns with the principle of main gain. And this approach is emphasizes a gradual increase in muscle mass, focusing on precise caloric intake and consistent strength gain, potentially offering a better alternative and sustainable alternative than traditional bulking, even the more moderate approach that we just called it earlier. So this recent study basically proved that main gaining is better than traditional bulking, and that even the basically sustainable, best, smart way approach of bulking is even kind of lesser in terms of development and in terms of result than just, this maintenance thing with maybe a little caloric surplus that is not changing much actually. And we should not be bulking. Okay, video stopped here. Or is it? There is something entirely wrong, in my opinion, with all these things, and especially with the communication around it. Not the scientists themselves, not the expert, and definitely not the work that someone as awesome as Eric Helms did. No, it's about the fact that it is termed in a manner where you do not really understand at first what bulking is supposed to be and do. Since when did you try to bulk to gain fat? No one. So already there is like a misconception, in my opinion, between what is supposed to be traditional bulking, which is apparently pigging out, and optimized bulking or lean bulking. But from the start, you're not supposed to gain much fat when you're bulking. You're not supposed to gain much weight. People that are trying to bulk to gain weight are either, they are either misconducted, misinformed, or they are athletes from doing whatever sports they are in. They need to move up in weight class, and that is entirely different. But for all the others, it's a question of, do you want to be heavy, or do you want to look good, or do you want to be muscular? It's this kind of approach. You're supposed to go from a scrawny body, as I said, to one with literally built by the gods. And if you're natural, you're going to have internet. Okay, this is what you envision when you're speaking about bulking, not becoming a fatso, not emulating the sumotori. As to recomp, explain to me, when was the last time you saw any kind of meaningful and very subsequent gains, both in terms of mass or strength, by doing just recomp? Because the chances are it did happen, but it was pretty medium term to even long term. While on the other hand, when you do your cycles of bulking, little cut, something fantastic happened. And is that despite the fact that technically speaking, this is not a constant body shape that you have with the same percentage of muscle mass and body fat in your body, you greatly improve. And on a 1 year, for example, period, there is a before after that is significantly more impressive than doing something on a recomp. Now, recomp as it's used, for example, it's pretty smart to do recomp when you do not have like physical goals that are excessively big. You're supposed to be doing competition, for example. You're not doing any kind of like strength sport thing like powerlifting or rugby or whatever. And also you may have other stuff to attend in your life, and bodybuilding or training is not something that is really at the forefront of your life. For example, you have your work stuff, you have your study stuff, you have your private life, your personal life, you have project, building a house, moving out, you have a side hustle, you have a side project about some hobbies that you have, you're building a family, I don't know, your health, you have a problem with a joint and you're trying to prehab or rehab it because you got injured or you're starting to feel like you're going to get injured. In this type of specific period, yes, recomping can be a great tool because you basically keep clocking in at the gym, you keep doing your training, you keep doing your work, you stay consistent, you stay disciplined, and at the same time you cover up or you fix some issues, or you make sure that the gym is not eating up on your whole life, so your life outside the gym, which I hope is very, very fruitful. So yeah, in those specific terms of life and parameters, recomp has its place, because it's not like you're going to be able to go very hard and very steadily at the gym with like a lean bulk, etc., etc. But other than that, if everything is fine in your life, if you have everything needed for you to actually transform your body, and if also you're a bit more pressed by the time, like, hey, this summer I need to be in this shape, I'm going to marry, and I want to make sure that this dress is good for me, or this suit is nice for me, or I'm going to have a kid, and or you already have a kid and the kid is growing up and you're like, I need to be a better example for them. Are you going to recomp, or are you going to make sure that in 9 months time you did one little bulk, then you did a little cut, then you did a little bulk, and your body really moved up in terms of size, in terms of strength, in terms of posture, in terms of voice? You see, time is of the essence. So doing recomping just to spin your wheels, saying that, you're not being too lean, getting too fat, yes, but you can also really slow down your project result by doing that, and your bodybuilding result as well. So it's a choice. But slapping and eating on bulking, saying it's bad, is a huge issue in my opinion, because bulking is extremely key for many type of individuals that we're going to see right. The first kind of individuals that we need to speak about are beginners. Now, for beginners, I made a guide, and this guide was more for training, but I spoke also a little bit about the nutrition. And basically, when you're a beginner, everything will work. Shitty training, shitty diet, shitty lifestyle, it will work because you're a beginner. You have nothing. You're still building. So you do not need to put a lot of effort if you already have to build everything from the ground up. It's as you go, as you become an intermediate or an advanced or even an expert, that you have to be really, really cautious and serious about those things. Still, most beginners are also quite young lads. As young guys, you have a high metabolism. Most of you are going to be basically scrawny, not much muscle mass. So you actually have a shit ton of tissue to build. And furthermore, you staying lean is going to be a problem, or should I say too lean, because you have no muscle. So you want abs, you want your biceps vein, you want your square shoulder, your wide shoulder, your V-taper, but with what muscle? You have no muscle. So you're going to build muscle, and it's easier to build muscle in a surplus. Yes, a slight surplus, still a surplus. So for beginners, this bulking attitude is going to be way better than, recomp. Okay, that's the first point. Second point, very easily would be the hard gainers. Now there is no science of hard gainers, or very little, and we have not much proof that they exist, but still, it is totally understandable and even observable that some people just need more kilocalories than others. And I know because I'm one. When I'm bulking, I need up to 5,000 kilocalories, and I'm average height, and I'm like 80, right now I'm 85 kilograms, so 185, 186, I believe. I'm not very tall, I'm not very heavy, and still 5,000 kilocalories at the end of a bulk. I know people that are ahead, fuller than me, taller than me, that eat basically the same as me. I know people that are bulking when I'm cutting with the same amount of calories. So you cannot tell me that it does not exist, and you cannot tell me that the study is needed for us to prove and blah, blah, blah. No, it's easy gainer exists, gaining fat or gaining muscle, whatever, and hard gainer also exists. You cannot tell me otherwise. Also, these people that need to eat more by default also needs to apply a better training strategy, doing a little less or turning more rest day because you're already burning so much. So good. It can also be a normal problem, and still, most of you will need a high caloric amount of food to make sure everything is running properly. So in this kind of instance, again, bulking is preferable than maintenance or even cutting. It's math. Maybe it's not science, but it's math. And the last tip of profiles that we need to have in order to defend this bulking stuff is competitive or seasoned athletes. You see, when you want to push as much as possible your body to become a champion, and I'm talking bodybuilding, but powerlifting, weightlifting, CrossFit, MMA, grappling, wrestling, football, rugby, whatever, any kind of strength sport where weight and body composition is of the essence, bulking, traditional bulking is important because you need to put every chance, every little percentage of progression that you can have with you on your side to make sure that you are progressing. And there is absolutely no bodybuilder that is competitive at the highest level, whatever is natural or not, that is going to tell you, I do not bulk, I just recomp. None of them. If you look at the PEDC, guys like Dorian Yates, for example, from the 90s, was up to 6,000 kilocalories when bulking and half that at the end of a cut. And he was a pretty big guy. Coleman, who was the following up Mr. Olympia, was a little bit above that. There is one guy with a freaky mass monster of this era of the 90s and the early 2000s, is Victor Richard. And Victor Richard was up to 10,000 kilocalories per day for bulking and 6,000 to 7,000 kilocalories to cut. This exists. Are you going to tell them that they should be eating maintenance? I mean, whatever. On the natural bodybuilding scene, you have guys like from France, Samuel Hartmann, that is also very, very adamant on doing his bulking season, then his cutting season. More recently, he became a pro in WNBB. So, it works. There is the Ramon Lichmacher champion from Switzerland that is also bulking a shit ton of weight and then cutting, and he ends up with a terrific body. There is Julius Maddox, there is Maxime Tusch, I believe. I'm not really sure about the pronunciation, but they are both from Germany. And same, they are looking so unbelievably big and great when they are in a cut, but when you look at them during the bulk, well, they are bulking. So maybe as you age and maybe as you get more understanding of your body, you do not go as high in body fat during the bulk, but you still bulk. You still let your body have plenty enough resources to recover and bulk and create tissue, and at the same time protect itself from stressors like training, and then you do your cut. You do not stay at maintenance with lower body fat just to say, look, I'm at maintenance with lower body fat. At least not when you're doing a competitive thing with the sport and with the muscle building and strength building aspect of your training. And I could keep going on, with many names of many eras, but in a nutshell, when you are high level, you need your cut, you need your bulk. Period. Now, there is something I want to just say about the studies, and that is the fact that there is no mention of intensity, and by intensity, I mean the effort. For example, this study that has been led by Dr. Eric Helms with, the maintenance 5% surplus and the 15% surplus, they all did the same training, and there is a problem with that, because when you have a high amount of calories, you can do more because you have more resources. That's why in the cut, when you have less resources, you can do less, and it's normal. So why would someone who has a very high and big surplus do the exact same as someone who is in maintenance? Doesn't make sense. Actually, your nutrition, your diet needs to mirror your training. If you're training a lot, high volume, high effort, high tonnage, workload, intensity, you need to eat more. If there is less of that, or if you manage to be on the lower end of the intensity and all the volume and blah blah blah, it's going to require way less food for you. But if you train a lot, it's going to require more. Yet again, you would not be able to have some kind of study with that, because you need to take one person and they would do like a protocol A, protocol B, protocol C, and with that you work out like the differences, but it's individual. So it's already on the highest amount of personalization with training and diet and lifestyle and whatever. So it does not really hold most importances for most of us because it's individualism again. But I can promise you that when I'm doing more exercise in the gym and then I'm having a higher volume, it's way easier for me to do it and to withstand it and to progress from it and to have results from it, which is, I mean, you know what we are after when I am eating a shit ton of food than when I'm not eating a lot of food. And actually, that's also one of the little techniques that I have when I'm cutting. I just had little sets here and there, or I had 1 or 2 exercises, and just this is going to like make me peak more into the caloric reserve, into the fat stuff, while also tuning out a bit more of the body, you know, like having a better shoulder to chest tie-in, having a better VMO popping out of the quads, having better striation in the lats and whatnot. And I know it sounds dumb, and I know it sounds maybe crazy even, but it's anecdotal, but many athletes did that, especially in the 60s and 70s, where basically for them, cutting was doing a bit of cardio, but training more with less rest period. So it's all joint, it's all mixed together. If you have a high surplus, you need to also train a shit ton to make sure that you're actually using this surplus for something other than gaining fat. And if you have a little surplus, you are going to be much more into the average or known zone for you and overall for everyone than if you had it at, you know, volume to 11. So again, this is something so simple and it's so overlooked, and that is why sometimes some guys are doing some crazy things in the gym and you are like, this is not possible, the guy must not be progressing, or there is no way he's natural. But the guy is progressing is natural. Why? Because he's eating alone like a family of 5. And this is going to be something that maybe bruise the ego of some of you, because I know how hard it can be to hear that. Still, it is a fact. So there is genetic, there is the bulk, there is the training, but there is also just your approach overall to training and to the overall thing of a lifestyle, you know, the sleep, nutrition, etc. So is bulking vaulted? I do not think so. Let me know in the comments how you feel about bulking, if you have done bulking already, if you never succeeded yet with bulking, and if you prefer to be on maintenance mode. But for me, bulking has its use just like maintenance, and it's just about getting the right tool for the right job. Simple. That's why some of my trainees are on bulk and cut phases, while others are on maintenance. Simple. I hope for you that it was a great video. I hope you've learned a few things, and I'm going to see you very soon for our next video. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you for watching.